My hat! Alright, good. So at this point, now I'm going to need my 2mm driver. And it's funny, a cloud just kind of went over, blocked the sun, so now there's less light in the room. Whereas when I started, there was more light. Alright, let's see. So we'll place this here. And then I'm going to rotate this so that it's facing this little hole here. And there it is. Now I get to tighten this. Alright, good. So now that we have this, I can go ahead and install this. Yeah, the bearing is sitting there flush. Yeah, there's no space for a shim. No space at all. Alright, hex is in. And we get to do this all over again. So again, oh, there's the other one. Alright, so I did count correctly. It was just somehow I guess when I picked up the other pin, this pin probably rolled on top of that E-clip. That's why I couldn't see it. Alright, here we go. Right, E-clip is installed, and I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to push the pin down just enough so that it's only the groove, so I can, again, set the E-clip right on top, and then I can just use my pliers, and that is it. Now I just need to go ahead and install this here, and I'm using my 2.5, and I'm going to line this up. That looks straight from my angle. And again, I'm just going to thread this until I can no longer see the threads. And that is it. All right, good. So that's the conversion kit. So that is installed. Now at this point, I can go ahead and install the shock tower, and the shock tower, again, this is the rear, this goes toward the rear, that will go in here, and for this I will be reusing the original hardware, and here they are. Those are the original screws, and this will help me keep everything in place. Bumper does get in the way. Oh, the bumper mounts. Oh, and the bumper. Probably should have removed the bumper first since I'm replacing it, but it's helping me keep everything together. Alright, for the rear bumper, I am going to replace it with the RPM. So this is one of the problems here. For the lower ones, it's actually the bulkhead that gets in the way. There's nothing you can do about that. Because you are screwing it onto the bulkhead that is in the way. Alright, for the bumper we have these 4 screws right here, and we will go ahead and remove those 4 because the bumper that we are installing will be an RPM bumper, and we should be able to use this hardware hopefully because there is no hardware on the RPM version. And we are going with blue, and the reason why I chose blue is because that's what they had in stock, or else I probably would have just gotten the black one. But after seeing the front ends, the blue doesn't look that bad. It looks alright. In the camera it looks like a darker blue. It's actually a lighter blue. It's darker than PS3, so the Tamiya PS3, it's darker than that color, if you're familiar with that color. Or if you're familiar with Grabber Blue, it's darker than Grabber Blue. It's more of a bubblegum blue, to be honest. But here is the bumper. So the part number is 73805. That's the one that we are using, which is the blue bumper by RPM. And again, there's just a sticker in there. But let's see. All right, so this will go here. And yes, we can reuse the hardware. I'm just going to get this screw close. And once I have the top one in, I can go ahead and screw the top one. I'll go back to the lower one. Now these bumper mounts are two different pieces, so I'm not going to worry about doing the other one and then this one and then going in a cross pattern. Just going to screw those two together. Then after that, I will go to this right over here. Here it is. Now one more. And the RPM bumper is a much larger bumper if you compare it with the stock one. How much stronger? Good question. But it is thicker material. So even if it were the same type of plastic, there is more material there. And that will help. Now here for the shocks, we're going to grab these right over here. And this is really all that we have left before we can mate this to the other part. So we have these, oops, and I will go ahead and screw the tops first. And just remember that this large surface area goes against the plastic, the thinner area, this is where the screw goes. So the screw will go in through here, and I'm going to use my 2mm driver. So I am replacing the screws, I'm not using the original hardware. Again, I can get away with, this was fine thread, and so fine thread, it's the same thread, but I get to use hex screws instead of Phillips screws. If I can use hex screws instead of Phillips screws, I will. That's actually what kept me from getting a Tamiya man truck for quite some time. I didn't want to deal with the Phillips screws, but to be honest, the Tamiya is such an easy build that those screws work well. You really don't need hex screws. The likelihood of you damaging one of the heads is minimal. It's a different type of plastic. The screws just thread themselves in easily. Alright, so for the rear, let's see where I want to go. Maybe I'll go in the middle. Maybe I'll go over here. Depends. I'm not going to be taking really big jumps, so I will go here, in the middle. Really don't remember where I placed my shocks in the front. I think I placed them probably all the way to the inside. And here we go. All right. Oops. And we will have this one. Now it's only two more shocks, just the front shocks. And then the rear end will be completely assembled. And what we will have to do is just make the rear to the front and then mount the engine back in the truck, and then take it out for a spin. Those feel so much better than the stock ones, I'll tell you that. here. And I am really liking the way these RPM arms look in the space that they have for the shock articulation so far. I may consider getting the RPMs for the front. I did not, but I mean, I think I should have. This one's too long, I'm going to replace it. And again, GTR shocks, I think, are the way to go. These GTR shocks, which are the XX long, they are the type of shock that you would install for the rear of a slash. So these would go in the rear of a slash. That would be my recommendation. Oh, you know what? That long one, I'll use on the top. And the reason why is they have more oil capacity. It's just a bigger bore. I believe it's a millimeter more, which may not seem like much, but it makes a big difference because remember, millimeter, you have to use pi when you're calculating the volume of a cylinder, and pi is just over 3. So if you increase by a millimeter, you're actually increasing by a lot more than just value of 1. So if you're going from, let's see, 12 to 13, it's different than going from 144 to 169 when you square. Now I'm just talking about area. And the only reason why I'm talking about area is because if the length is the same, then we're worried about the area. But remember, with the area of a circle, you're working with pi. Let's see, here we go. All right, we're almost there. And again, the only reason why I chose green is because, well, I wanted different color shocks on the front and the rear because I'm using different oil. That way I can tell apart the front from the rear easily. But then you can get green, blue. I was already using the black ones. I'm not sure about red if they have red, but green is the color that they had 4 of. If not, I probably would have chosen blue just to match everything. But I like this green color. But that is it. So the rear suspension is fixed. I'm going to adjust the toe once everything's on, and we'll have to do some toe adjustment. Sorry, I keep saying toe, camber. So we'll have to do some camber adjustment. The toe is fixed. So now there's going to be no more of that bump steer when I hit bumps in the rear. But that is it. So that is the rear assembly. That's good to go. Now I just need to make these two pieces together before I install the engine.